Hello, welcome to another Zoom group, further Emergence Zoom group. We're going to start with the meditation like we do every time to help enhance and enrich and expand on the communication that's already there. So at the moment we're communicating, our one dimension of the communication is Zoom video, if you're watching on video. And then the meditation is to expand that and sort of become a bit more conscious of the other dimensions of the communication that are going on. Now, if you're watching the video and you don't want to do the meditation, that's fine. You can skip forward. If you're watching it on YouTube, you can skip forward. If you look on the menu, you'll be able to click on it. It's usually about 20 minutes, something like that. So if you just take note of your surroundings, where you are, as you either watch the video or if you're here in the group. So by that, I mean, you're in a room somewhere and you've got your device in front of you, whether that's your laptop or your phone or your tablet or whatever. And you're seeing my little video and hearing my voice. So that's the communication so far. Okay. Now just hold that in your mind before you begin to just make a sort of snapshot of that. And then when I start to meditate, I just like to close my eyes. I don't like to get into a special meditative position. And the reason for that is I just want to see what's going on. Whereas if I get into a special position, I'll miss what's going on because I'll change. I'll do what I think is the right thing to do. I'll sit up straight. I'll uncross my arms. I'll uncross my legs. I'll start to breathe deeply. I'll do all that stuff. And that's all beautiful and great. But I personally just like to close my eyes because when I do that, I immediately become aware of areas of tension in my body that I wouldn't have been aware of before. Because, normally when I start to meditate, I will have been sitting I'm usually sitting. I'll be sitting in the same position for a while. And I might think I'm comfortable. I'm certainly not uncomfortable, or I don't think I'm uncomfortable. But then as soon as I close my eyes, it's like all the different parts of me that are uncomfortable and that I haven't been aware of get my attention. So if you are newish to meditation, then it's very good to scan your body, from your head down to your feet, back up again, slowly, gently, because before meditation, unless you're a dancer or you're big into yoga or some other thing that helps bring you into your body. But if you're not doing any of that stuff, chances are that you will just be a bit unconscious of your body. And closing your eyes like that just makes you, scanning your body like that helps you to bit by bit become more conscious of what's going on in your body. And that's great. If you've been meditating for a while and you're used to it, then you'll be a bit more conscious of your body. So that I know the case for me anyways, when as soon as I close my eyes, whatever part of me is most uncomfortable that I've been unaware of will get my attention. It will go, hey, what about me? Okay. So I'll just draw your attention to a few different areas just to sort of, that can be quite unconscious. So spine and how your spine is and how my spine is always something that it continually gets my attention. Because I'll think I'm comfortable, and then as soon as I close my eyes, my spine will go, I'm so hunched over, I'm so collapsed, I'm so not straight. And what I've found recently is a lovely way of just helping my spine find its natural position is to think about my heart lifting up to the sky. And when I think about that, my spine just goes into its happiest place. I used to try and force my spine into different, being more rigid, sit up straight, all that kind of thing. And I was never able to hold it. I even used to use that Alexander technique. In fact, if you listen back to older Zoom groups, you'll hear me saying this about, like imagining there's a string tied to the top of your head and it's being pulled up to the ceiling. That's a pretty good one, but none of them are as good for me as this one of lifting my heart up to the ceiling, up to the sky or heaven, whichever. I don't think heaven's up anywhere, so it doesn't really register for me, but maybe it does for you. But the sky is above us, so lifting your heart up to the sky is a good one. And when I do that, it's like this flow of liquid relaxation goes up and down my spine as my spine goes into its natural curves. Your spine is not supposed to be dead straight. It's not designed to be like that. It's supposed to have curves in it. They act as shock absorbers. So it's not like you want to try and make your spine ramrod straight. That's not the point. But what you want to try and do is help it to be in its natural place where it's comfortable and happy. That's what I mean about it being in its happy place. So spine is a good one to focus on. Another one to focus on is the center of your forehead. Every time I put my attention on the center of my forehead, I can help it to relax. And it's not like I'm a frowning sort of person. I'm not, some people that got very heavy frown lines in the center of their forehead. I don't have that because I don't frown. If anything, I've got lines of like surprise. But even with that, with the not frowning, putting my attention in the center of my forehead and thinking about it easing and being more relaxed, it just continues to flow out. It's like a knob of butter melting in the pan. It just flows out of this point in my forehead as I spend more time with it. And my sense of it is that the stresses of facial expression, of having to convey things, or not having to, but the mechanism of conveying things all day long accumulates at that point, the stress of it. I don't know why it does it. Like it's almost like bubbles that float up your face, bubbles of stress. But when I feel into it, that's what it feels like for me. It might be different for you. So the center of your forehead is a good one for helping. It's not an obvious one, an obvious point of accumulation of tension. So that's why I like it. And then we've got one more. We've got the heart area. Heart area is great because even with the lifting up to the sky, your heart area can still feel tight. But it's a subtle kind of tightness. It can be hard to discern because it's the sort of tightness that comes into your heart area is accumulated over years. Disappointments, heartbreaks, little things that little hurts, all sorts of different things can end up in your heart. And over time, it can weigh it down, it can become heavy, and it can become tight. Now, it's quite hard to get your heart to relax because it's not really its function to relax. So it's a bit of a paradox, or it's a bit of kind of cross purposes. So I like to focus on the pericardium, which is the bag or the covering that my heart sits inside. Because when I think about my pericardium, it responds much like my center of my forehead. It begins to straighten out and relax, and any little wrinkles that are in it, and there's just a general feeling of space can come into my pericardium. So I think focusing directly on my heart is a bit like opening the bonnet of the car while it's running and then sort of fiddling around with the screwdriver, not really knowing what you're doing and just hoping that something good will happen. Like the heart's very busy, there's a lot going on there. It's a big field generator. It's a series of connected vortices that help in the transport of blood around your body. So there's a lot going on there. But focusing on the pericardium, it seems like that's where a lot of the emotions, a lot of the hurts are. So focusing on that and allowing that to open up, following on my little car analogy, it helps to expand the engine compartment, the compartment that my heart sits inside. And that seems to help, and indirectly my heart enjoys it and becomes a bit more easier and more efficient and free flowing in what it's doing. Because your heart area is a huge field generator. It goes out, you know, very, very far around you. I mean, they've measured it, but then they've measured it at like, I don't know, 10 meters or something like that. But that I personally, I don't think of it like that, because I think that's just the limit of the measuring equipment. It's not the full size of it. So you could think about your heart, the field that your heart generates is going as far as you like. So coming back to the meditation, the focus of the meditation, which is about communication. If you bring your attention to the sensation in your hands, and if your hands are clasped or joined, if you bring them, separate them and just put them on your thighs, and just get a nice sense of what the sensation in your hands is, what it feels like. A good way to get into it more deeply is to compare the sensation of the front of your hands, which would be the palms of your hands and your fingertips, that part, with the back of your hand. And you may find that it feels much bigger on the front of your hand than it does on the back of your hand. But either way, just focusing on that will give you a good sense of what's the sensation of my hands. I want to take a reference for that, because we're going to connect with it in a minute. We're going to use it in a minute, use that reference. So if you think of, if you've ever seen a set of virtual reality goggles, you can use that idea of a set of virtual reality goggles that you sort of look into, and you look into this, virtual world. You can sort of flip that on its head, and you can start to think about what was there when your eyes were open, that was a virtual world that you were looking into. And instead of the goggles being just around your eyes, they cover the whole front of your body and some of the back of your legs and maybe the back of your arms. And instead of putting your face into this, or your eyes into this little goggle, it's like you enter this whole fantastic apparatus of communication with this virtual world that you've been looking into. And what you're doing when you meditate is you sort of pull back from it a bit, okay? And the sensation is still there on the inside, but you're pulling back from it. And with that sensation in your hands, it's almost like you're withdrawing your presence from the this beautiful set of goggles, which is kind of like a suit, like a virtual reality suit that you've been in. You're pulling back from it. And as you pull back from it, you're pulling back into a deeper reality, and you can do things in this deeper reality, the behind the scenes, if you like, that you couldn't do when you were in this virtual world, in the rules of that little virtual world that we call existence. So you've got your reference for your hands. And now what I want you to do is, as you pull back from your virtual reality suit, we call your body, you're sort of back behind the curtain now. You're back behind the scenes. And if you hold the intention that you want to connect with me, okay, so if you want to hold your hands out on either side of you, that's kind of helps get the idea. And then just focusing on your fingers and your hands and the sensation that was there in your hands. If you hold the intention that you'd like to connect with me, then you may begin to notice something else, as well as what was there when you made the reference for what's the sensation of my hands like. You get a sense of something else. Now, if your mind gets involved with it and immediately starts to go, oh yeah, I could definitely feel something. Oh my God, that's amazing. Okay, that's probably not it. That's just your mind. Okay, so let's just say that's fine. How you will probably feel it is a slow dawning of a sense of something other, something that wasn't there before when you were checking in with your hands. That'll be me. We're going to start with me. And if you've done this meditation with me before, then you can, you don't have to stay in the hands. You can allow that sensation to travel up your body and become more all over body kind of a connection. And if you're watching the video, this includes you as well, because back here, when you've pulled back from the virtual reality suit that you call your body, the rules are different back here. Time and space don't matter. So the people in the Zoom group, they're all over the world. They're all over the different parts of the world, or they appear to be, but it's almost like we're all in the same room. We've all just been plugged into our little virtual reality suits and sharing a kind of connection through that. But then we've all pulled back from it. So we're all in the same room and we're kind of high-fiving each other behind the scenes, connecting, or shaking hands, or holding hands, or putting our arms around each other's shoulders, behind the scenes, connecting behind the scenes. Now, if your mind is freaking out a bit, going, what is he talking about? That's not possible. These people are in different countries and blah, 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 blah. And I'm only watching a video. How could I possibly be connecting with somebody? Well, one of the most helpful things you can do with your mind is not get in a fight with it. So I would encourage you to say thank you to your mind for pointing out all those very interesting observations. And you can make a deal with your mind where you can say, that all sounds very interesting. I'm going to have a think about all of that afterwards. But for now, I just want to focus on the sensation in my hands. As I say, the rules are different back here. Time and space don't operate the same way. Now, if you're watching the video, you can connect with everyone who's going to watch the video after you, as we can as well, the people who are watching the people in the Zoom group, because we wanted you to include the other people in the group as well now. So you've got the reference of me, then the other people in the Zoom group. So if you're watching the video, connect with the people in the Zoom group, and you can also connect with all the people who are going to watch the video after you. And same again. If your mind comes up with lots of reasons why that's not possible, thank it. I'm going to think about it later, but for now, I just want to be with the sensation. So what you will hopefully be having is a growing sense of depth in the connection, a broadening of the depth in the connection. It's almost like, following on with that analogy of the virtual reality suit that you've been using, it's almost like pulling back from that and kind of looking to your left and looking to your right without using your eyes and going, oh, okay, there's actually a bit more going on here than I realized. If you're in the group, you can connect with all the people who are going to watch the video as well. If you're watching the video, you can connect with all the people who watched the video before you, as well as all the people who are going to watch the video. It's all possible behind the scenes. Time and space operate differently. Because the beautiful thing is that what hopefully you'll be getting a sense of is that there's a richness to communication that's there all the time. We started off with a very one-dimensional aspect of the communication, Zoom group, plastic and metal device, on your own, in a room. Now you've got all this other connection that you're aware of. Because the thing is, when people talk about profound realizations of oneness, where they say, I looked into the eyes of the old woman, and the old woman was me, and I was the old woman. Or I looked into the eyes of the deer, and the deer was me, and I was the deer. Or the dog was me, and I was the dog. Or I looked at the ocean, and I knew that I was one with the ocean, or the mountain, or the tree. They don't actually merge with the thing that they realize they're one with. It's not like the person merges with the tree or merges with the eagle or merges with the mountain, because that happens, that would be happening in existence. Where they register that knowledge of connection is where you are now, behind the scenes. That's where it all happens. So the beautiful thing is that when you're aware of this depth of connection, you can bring it into your daily life. So if you're talking to your neighbor or the postman or the shopkeeper, you can be aware of the frontal kind of connection that's going on, the communication, and then also the behind the scenes communication. And then also, for a lot of people who are in isolation at the moment, you can realize that you're never actually alone, that there's always friendly energies that you can connect with. And if you're involved in or concerned about the rest of the world and feel that feeling of, well, that's only little me, what can I do about it? You can do a lot back here. You can connect with the whole world. You can connect with everybody on the planet, and you can be available to help anywhere your help is needed. And you can do remarkable things. You can do huge things here behind the scenes, because the rules are different back here. And you have to do them with humility, not expecting to ever see the fruits of your work, but you're expanding your heart. And that's what I was saying about your heart is as big as you like, as you want it to be. Expanding your heart, sending your essence, which is love, to wherever you feel like it's needed. And you can do amazing things here. So we're going to start coming to the end of the meditation. If you're new to meditation, you may have a feeling of that you've gone somewhere, like you've descended into yourself. So if you have that feeling, then you might want to take a bit of time to come back from there before you open your eyes, because if you have that feeling of that you've traveled or that there's distance involved and you just open your eyes, it can be just very disorienting. If you've been meditating for a while, where you're heading towards with meditation is being completely conscious of the depth, that the deepest deep that you ever went in meditation, that's completely available all the time, that you don't actually go anywhere. There's no travel involved. It's completely available all the time. And the more you meditate, the more you become aware of that, so that you can have your eyes open and it's exactly the same as being in very deep meditation. You can include the outer space and the inner space together simultaneously. You can be talking to your neighbor, you can be fixing your car, you can be washing the dishes or watching the TV and still be very conscious of the depths. So as a kind of step towards that, you can use the end of your meditation to begin to get used to holding the inner space and the outer space at the same time. And in that case, you just open your eyes. And when you start to do this first, as soon as you open your eyes, you feel like you're being sucked out of the inner space, because the visual part of this virtual reality suit's very compelling. So you can feel like you're being sucked out. And if that happens, then you can just close your eyes again, reconnect. Oh yeah, there it is, the inner space, beautiful. Open your eyes again. Oh yeah, good. No, I'm losing it. And you can use your eyes like a valve to open and close to balance the inner space and the outer space. Okay, so welcome again. If you skip forward in the video or you're just joining us for the podcast. As I say at the beginning of all these Zoom groups, the time of the guru is over. The time of the spiritual teacher is over. The time of the spiritual master is over. The time of the celebrity is over. There's just the celebrities don't know that yet, but it's happening more and more. But most importantly, though, the time of the guru, the spiritual teacher, the spiritual master, all that kind of stuff, that's over. And we are now have raised in consciousness to the point where we are being encouraged to be completely responsible, to not abdicate our growth to anyone else. You can't say to anyone else, oh, tell me how it is so I don't have to think about it, don't have to go through it. Tell me the way it is. Those times are over. We're all helping each other now at this stage. As Ram Dass said, we're all helping each other home, which I think that's a lovely way of thinking about it. So I say that to just re-emphasize that I'm not doing this is not a teaching here. I'm not teaching anything. I'm just sharing my experience. I've had a lot of experience. I've been involved in this kind of thing for a long time. And so I'm just facilitating the group. I'm just sharing my experience in exactly the same way as if I said to you, oh, I watched this brilliant film the other night. That's great. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Or if I was saying to you, oh, I found a quicker route home, try going this way, whatever. I'm not saying I know the truth. I know my truth for sure, but that's all I know. I think what's true for everyone else is true for them. There is no universal truth as far as I can see, but that's just my perspective. So with that in mind, I always like to hear or talk about the sorts of things that the people in the group want to talk about. So does anybody have a question or feedback or reflection or anything that's gone on for them that they want to get into? All right, I've had someone send in a question. I say, hi, John, I have a question. Easter's coming and it makes me think. People are celebrating the resurrection of Christ and it makes me think about miracles and if everything can be healed. Maybe I'm naive, but I like to believe so. With all your experience with healing, have you ever concluded anything about the limits to it? What are your beliefs and conclusions about what's possible and what isn't? Okay, I'd forgotten it was Easter, even though today is, yeah, it's Good Friday, isn't it? Yeah, Good Friday. So what they're, if you don't know what they're talking about in terms of me and healing is I've worked as a craniopsychotherapist for 30 plus years. I've treated a lot of people. So I've got a particular perspective on it. Okay. So, miracles. Yeah, I've seen quite a few. Like for me, the whole journey of, when I was growing up and when I was, like I was in a band. So I was like, I wanted to be a rock star. Then I got really interested in film. I wanted to be a film director. And like, I think I spoke before about how craniosacral sort of hunted me down, craniosacral therapy. I'd never heard of it before. And then out of the blue, I heard about it. And then I couldn't stop hearing about it for 6 months. And my resistance was the idea of being a healer just was the last thing I wanted to do. I just was like, no. I am a rock star. I'm a film person. No, I'm an artist. No, I don't want to be doing a healing thing. But little did I know, years before that, I think it was in 1986, my brother Derek was in a very bad car accident. And again, I may have talked about this before, but anyway, I'll tell the story again very quickly. He was in a very bad car accident. He was hit by a car. He went up in the air, came down, and landed on his head. And it was late at night, and the police came to my mother's and brought her to the hospital. And the surgeon said, he's not going to survive the operation. We have to operate now. He's not going to survive. The chances are very low. Okay. So I was like, poor mother, And he survived the operation. He twisted his brainstem, just if you know about anatomy. So your brain, it looks like a broccoli or a cauliflower. The stalk that comes down out of the bottom of the cauliflower. It'd be like if he twisted that. Okay. if you damage it, you know, bits of it, you'll lose different function, but the stem, that's pretty catastrophic, you know. So the surgeon was doing what doctors are trying to do, which is prepare people for the worst. I'm not going to get into whether I think that's a good idea or not, but that's why he said what he said. Anyway, Derek survived. And then, but he was in a coma. So the next day it was like, well, the doctors were like, okay, he survived the operation. He's probably not going to last the week. So Derek lasted the week. And that was a kind of pattern then. You know, the doctors would say something, make a prediction, and Derek would do the opposite. So they were like, he's never going to wake up out of this coma, you know. And if he does, he'll be a vegetable, kind of thing. So, like, I was in America at the time when Derek had this accident. And when I left, you know, Derek was a 16-year-old youth and big for his age, not fat, but he was into taekwondo. So he was quite muscular and he was taller than me. And like, I'm 5'11" or 5'11 and a half. So Derek would have been 6'1" or 2. Even at that age, I think he was pretty big. I can remember, you know, looking at him eye to eye. Anyway, so when, my family didn't want to, because they were getting such dire prognosis, and because I wasn't living in America, I'd just gone for the summer kind of thing. They didn't want to bring me back unless, you know, till they knew. So I didn't come back for a month or two, and no, it was about 6 weeks actually. And because at this stage he was in the coma, he'd got pneumonia twice, and every time he got pneumonia, they were like, "That's it. It's not gonna go well." So when I came back, you know, he was just like a skeleton. You know, he lost all muscle, and you know, it was so shocking. And the longer it went on, the coma went on, the more they were gone. No, it's not looking good. He's, you know, the longer a coma goes on, the less chance. What's probably going to happen is he'll get pneumonia one time and that's it. He's just not going to get rally, you know. And he was in a special ward for people with head injuries, and all around him, you know, there were youngish people who'd, you know, fallen off ladders or things. And there were people who had, much less severe injuries than Derek, head injuries, and they were dying, you know. So it was very real, you know. It was very, very serious. And every time somebody, you know, because we'd get to know the families, there was a real, you know, camaraderie between the families of like grief and shock and oh my God, and then, you know, this other 16-year-old boy would die, or this other person would die, 24-year-old person would die. It was so shocking. And it was like, oh my God, what the doctors are saying is probably true. You know, Derek's going to go any minute. So anyway, after 3 months, Derek woke up. Now, it didn't just happen. Like, it happened very slowly, and it happened through one finger. I think it was his index finger. Because, you know, I had the Hollywood idea of what a coma was, where the person is lying there with their arms crossed across their chest and their eyes closed, and there's sort of angel music in the background somewhere. No, it wasn't like that. The whole time Derek was in a coma, his eyes were open. And he would, you know, you'd hold his hand and he would grip your hand, you know, and you think, oh my God, do that again, Derek, you know. He never did anything twice, you know, but it was very difficult. And how he woke up was he did something and somebody said to him, do that again. And he did it again. And then to do that again, Derek, and did it again. So he basically regained control of his body, started off in his finger and slowly went through his whole body. And even when he started to wake up, the doctors were still going, he's going to be a vegetable. Just want to get you ready for that. And it took him ages, you know, it took him 2 years of rehab to learn to get the use of his body. And, you know, he was in a wheelchair for a while, and their doctors were like, he'll never going to get out of that wheelchair. And Derek ended up having the Hollywood moment of wheeling the wheelchair he was told he'd never get out of, you know, like walking behind it, pushing it into the office of the surgeon who told my mother on that night that he wouldn't survive the night. And good on the doctor. He was like, I've never been so happy to be wrong about something. But that happened to me, and that started something. That was a seed, you know, of a question about, which ended up with my book, Why Did We Get Sick and Why Did We Get Better? Because it was like, why are those people dying around Eric? Why is he not dying? Or what's going on? Like, what's the difference? Because from the medical science point of view, you know, that was a catastrophic injury. Derek technically should be dead. Like, there's no, you know, good reason why the poor man who fell off the ladder and just hit the top of his head, why he died and why Derek didn't die, you know? So like, that was a miracle, pretty much. Or, you know, as miracles go, that's a pretty good one, because there was no good reason why Derek should have got better, particularly when we had all these other references of how bleak it should have gone. And yeah, the doctors are trained to prepare the patient or the family of the patient for the worst possible outcome, but also they've seen it. They're not just making it up, you know. They kind of go, oh, that kind of head injury, that's not good. So it's not like they're making it up. So that was a very strong reference of a miracle for me, and that kind of changed what's possible, you know. Changed my idea of, number one, I never really believed doctors again. Not that I didn't I didn't lose respect for them or anything like that. It was more a case of, I just had this big thing of this big balancing experience of what they are talking about is what they know, and that's great. And what they know is a lot. You know, what medical science knows is big, but that huge, big knowledge is tiny compared to what they don't know. It's huge, it's vast what we don't know. So that was a miracle, okay? Then I did a fire walk. I did a couple of fire walks, and that wasn't so much of a miracle as it just went in of, yeah, the rules of this, what we call existence, are true most of the time. Meaning, if I put my hand in the fire, most of the time I'll get burned. But then it is also possible for me, in my experience, to walk across hot coals that normally would have burnt the feet off me and not get burned at all, not even hot spots. And it wasn't a fluke. I did it many times. Not on my own, like I prepared for it, but it didn't matter. It was a fact, like I didn't do anything else but change my state. And I was able to bend the rules. So that kind of went in as well. And this was all before I got into craniosacral work. So I was also really lucky to have a teacher who had bulletproof titanium confidence. It was fantastic. It was so helpful because he was great. Like, his name was Al Pulowski. He became a great friend. He became a great friend of mine. He's passed away now, but we had such fun together. But he had trained in medicine and other things, and he just knew a lot of stuff, and he was able to keep it in his mind, and he was just fascinated, and he sort of understood the mechanics of how bodies work and how they heal themselves, and was, he wasn't right about everything, but he was brilliant, So that really helped me as well in terms of, like, because the person was asking about what's possible and what are the limits. And while Al never said there are no limits, he just kind of had that vibe to him. So I have those kind of three things going on. So when, like, I used to rely, and I still do actually, like when I'm working with people in the further emergence work, with this strong sense of that the people who come to see me know that there's something that I've got for them. They've got something for me, and I've got something for them. And back when I was just starting out and I didn't have that much confidence, I relied on that. It was like, I don't know what they, why doesn't somebody more experienced treat them? They'd be much better than me, you know? So I'd have that feeling, but I wouldn't do anything about that because I kind of know somewhere, no, they're seeing something. They're not seeing like potential or anything like that. And I don't mean it in it like, oh, I see potential in you, but just I have something for them. They've got something for me. I would kind of rest in that. And doing that kind of work, I found it to be it would teach me. You know, like, I mean, it took me 2 years to learn to become a craniopsychotherapist. I didn't find it very easy. And I found physiology and anatomy very difficult. It took, you know, I think that's why I was a good teacher because, you know, there's that thing of if you ever want to learn something, don't learn from a natural, you know, if you want to learn how to fly, don't learn from someone who's just naturally good at flying, learn from someone who had trouble with it. And then they'll be able to, then they understand how they learned and they'll be able to help you learn. But anyway, it only took 2 years for me to become a craniopsycho, you know, to learn how to do it. But then it was it's a thing that continued to teach me as I did it for all those years. And it's the same with the further emergence work. It continues to teach me. And all the time when somebody would come, particularly, you know, because generally the way it went was someone would come for a back pain and I'd be like, oh my God, how am I going? I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going on. And then they would get better and I'd be like, oh, okay. And then the next person would come and they go, oh, I've got back pain. I go, okay, well, I had a bit of success with that one, with that before. Bit by bit, it's like, yeah, I think I can handle back pains, you know. Then it would be like, oh, migraines. I'm like, oh, okay, how do they work? And same bit by bit, you know, get more experience with those. But never was it like, oh no, I don't think I can help with that. You know, it was always like, well, I don't know, let's see what happens. You've come to me for something, you know, for a reason. And so on, right all the way through. Somebody would come with, you know, they would just get harder and harder. Things would come, but it was gentle in the way that it eased me into it. It's not like somebody showed up the first day and said, I've got leukemia. Do you think it can help? You know, that sort of thing came much later when I had like built up a lot of experience. And in terms of like, bodies are amazing. What's possible with people's bodies is amazing. You know, like Derek's a good example, but I've read about people who've made, what do they call them? Remission. They go into spontaneous remission. They don't know why that happens, you know, not really. So, you know, if it's possible for one person to go into spontaneous remission from a very severe life-threatening thing and to come back from the brink, if it's possible for one person, it's possible for anybody. I think it means that inherent in the mechanism is the capacity to do whatever it needs to do. Because bodies, I mean, what are bodies? They're just a collection of cells, you know. It's not a thing really unto itself. It's a collection of atoms, which is a collection of cells, which it's in cooperation. Even like, you know, if you think of your biome, your microbiome in your intestines, I mean, technically that's not really us. It's it's like something that we cohabit with, you know. We let these little bacteria live inside us because they can digest things that we can't, and we need the byproduct of the digestion. So it's like, okay, here's the deal. I will send you down some food. Could you eat it? Because then the byproduct of your digestion helps me survive, you know. So even like on that level, it's like, you know, we think of it, no, this is my body and I'm a little, you know, unit. So when you think of your body like cells, like just a collection of cells that just agree to do, you know, my fingernail cells just kind of agree to be fingernail cells, and the cells in my eyes and my lens of my eye just agree, well, I'm going to be a lens cell, you know? So think of it like that. It's much easier for me anyway to see it as iron filings that are in a particular shape, but it's just iron filings. They can spread and do all sorts of amazing things, you know? So that then is, you know, in my continual looking at this, it's like, well, why do some people get sick and some people get, or why do some people who are sick, you know, like say in that ward with my brother Derek, why did some people die and why did some people get better? Why did Derek get better, you know? And that led me into deeper and deeper things. So it's like, in terms of bodies, all things being equal. And this is what I would say to people when, you know, because invariably if someone was in a desperate situation and that they got to the, you know, at the end, like we were at the beginning of initially talking about it, and maybe at the end of the first treatment or something like that, invariably they would say, so can you heal me? Can you fix me? Am I going to get better? You know, which I completely understand why a person would ask me that. But standing to the side of it, it's a question that nobody can answer, you know, whether that would be, it'd be like my mother saying to that doctor that night, is he going to get better? You know, like the doctor was saying he probably won't make it through the night, and that's based on his experience. But he wouldn't be able to say categorically, yes, he is going to die, or no, he's not going to die. So equally, I can't say, yes, you're going to get better, or no, it's not going to work out. But what I generally would say is, I mean, we talk about their specific situation and what was going on, or what my sense of what was going on. But I would say, and I would say this in all honesty, there's no good reason why you can't get better. Okay. And that comes from my knowledge of bodies and what they can do. And left to its own devices without anything else going on, bodies always go towards homeostasis or balance. That's what they're designed to do. They'll always try and find equilibrium. And they'll always try and be the most vital expression of health. That's, you know, that's part of finding that balance. So if they don't do that, it's because there's other things going on. And that led me into the blueprint, and then the story of the person's life and what they were working out about themselves. And that, more than anything, governed whether a person would get better or not, you know. So for, you know, if you've never had anything to do with healing or worked with people in the way that I've been talking about, and you've got something going on for yourself, knowing all that, what I've just said, that's a great place to start from. Of like going from all things being equal, my body is designed to express itself in the most vital and healthy way. And I don't mean that in a way to you give yourself a hard time about, well, why isn't it doing that? Because when you're in pain and you're sick, and, you know, it's very hard to be philosophical and to have a bit of distance from it, and, you know, because it's, pain's awful. Who wants to be in pain? I don't. Nobody does. And nobody wants to have symptoms or anything like that. But just kind of knowing, okay, my body, in its left to its own devices, wants to be healthy and in balance. Then it's like, well, then there is things I can do, because then I can look at, well, what might be going on, what emotional things might be going on, what are the deeper spiritual things that might be going on. That's not to say you'll get any answers or you'll understand or anything like that. There's no guarantee of just because you look in a particular direction that you'll get an answer. But looking in that direction is a much better chance than not looking in that direction. You have a much better chance of getting an answer if you look in that direction than if you don't. Because if you go on a purely mechanistic way and go, my body's just a machine, sometimes the wheels fall off, I have to go and bring it to the mechanic, the doctor, to get it fixed, I don't need to know how it works. That's somebody else's job. Then that's fine. There's nothing. I'm not saying that that's wrong or anything. It's just another way of handling it. And then you'll be into what the whole world is into at the moment, and we have been for the last 70 years or so, of thinking that we know better than nature, rather than going, what can we learn from nature, and how can we work with it, and what is it trying to do, and how can we encourage that with like, no, we can add two, this 2 and 2 get 4, and it's never 4, it's 5, because nature is nature. It keeps adapting. So we keep pushing it down here and it keeps popping up there, and then we go over there and push that bit down, it comes up over there worse. But we're learning that the hard way. So let me see now if I covered resurrection of Christ. Yeah, so far I haven't seen anybody coming back from the dead, so I don't know about Christ's resurrection. I can't really speak to that. I can speak to miracles. All right, I've seen lots of miracles. I haven't concluded anything about the limits of it, because I don't, as I say, I think bodies are capable of doing anything. But that's an ongoing thing. Every new person I work with, I learn more. So I think it's good not to come to conclusions, generally. Working theories. I have lots of working theories, but no conclusions. Okay, so does anybody have any questions or reflections on that? Someone saying thank you. You're very welcome. Okay, well, if you don't mind, I'm going to just go into a little bit more. As part of the podcast, I've been each episode of the podcast, I'll do one new one and one old one. So I've been going through, slowly going through the ones from last year, and I'm going through one. It's been kind of a theme that's been coming in from a year ago, where I'm talking about in existence and out of existence. And that is a phrase I pretty much got from Barry Long. And it's like, it's very problematic. And I've just listened back, it's like, oh, you can hear people kind of, getting confused by it and not really getting it, And I don't know why I didn't do this before, but just, it's like a few different dots all just kind of came together. And like my book, The Gentle Snap, is pretty much all about seeing the gaps in existence and seeing the gaps in reality. And again, it's a difficult book in that I think people found it hard to really get it. It's kind of clear. It's clear as day to me. Of course it was. I wouldn't have written it otherwise. But just the feedback, like people read, why do we get sick? Why do we get better? And like, yeah, fantastic. But that's because I wrote it for people. I wrote it for people who came for treatment, and as a result of people, it's like, why do we get sick? Why do we get better? Is like a distillation of hundreds and hundreds of conversations I had with people about why they were sick and why they were getting better, and so on. And it was written for people who were in that kind of space, So it's an easy read. It's full of great analogies, and I only, like, the latest edition of it is, I only I updated it, so, last year, and my daughter did the new cover for it and everything. It's lovely. So it's like the 2021 version of it, and I didn't have to change that much, and like Maya Noise is great. It's a story. It jumps back and forth. It's it's all very I won't say exciting, but it's just an interesting story, and it's you know, it's got passion and blood and guts and sex, and it's great. The gentle snap, though, is very much about reality and about deconstructing reality. So it's not as easy to read. And the insight that I've had, and I don't know why I veered away from this, and I think it's because like the insight I had was to do with virtual reality. And, you know, and it's funny, I wrote a screenplay like many years ago, like 30 years ago, all about virtual reality and about these two characters, and they had these big full immersion virtual reality suits, and they were suspended. I had it all written out and everything, and they fell in love, and it was a big story. But it was this thing of entering another reality. And I realized that just in the same way that movies are very much, there's a lot of parallels between movies and reality. There's also a lot of parallels between life and, or sorry, movies. Yeah, movies and life. And there's also a lot of parallels between virtual reality and life. And maybe it's become, because it's kind of slowly come up, you know, meaning there was a thing, Second Life, I think it was called, for, and that would have been about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. And lots of people were in Second Life, which was basically just this computer world where you had an avatar and you could meet other people and you could buy things for your avatar and make it look a certain way and all this kind of thing. And people were living pretty much in Second Life. And so it sort of seemed to me that, like, or what's new for me is this thing of like, I think what I didn't like about virtual reality and using it as an analogy for our bodies was that the goggles are just this little letterbox you look in through, you know? And it seemed like our bodies are so much more complicated and involved than just this little looking in through a little letterbox. And, you know, just visual, it's not, yeah, you can put your headphones on, but, you know, it's still nothing compared to like all the sensations that you can have in your body. It seemed, you know, crazy. But then a couple of things happened. Because in the gentle snap, I talk about how, you know, you can't see the back of your head. You can't see your back. You're never going to see your back. And lots of things like that. And then I saw a picture of a cosmonaut spacesuit recently, and it was exactly the way I described how we come into our bodies in the gentle snap. Because if you think of a spacesuit, right, with the, you know, like spacesuits always look like they've got a backpack, and on the backpack they have all the oxygen stuff. I don't know what they've got in there, but it's like they've got a suit and a backpack. And to get into this, I think it was a Russian spacesuit, the backpack hinged, and then that's the way they got in. I was looking at it going, that's exactly the way we get into our bodies, from the back, like that. And we go down into our legs, and that's why we can see the back of our legs. But this thing of just making this connection of like, it's such a much easier to understand analogy of thinking about existence as being like virtual reality, except, yeah, I was thinking of existence being a virtual reality, meaning it's not a real reality, it's just a virtual reality. And then when you pull back from your virtual reality suit, then you're into more reality. Because if you were talking, if you came across somebody who was, I mean, you've probably seen them, you know, pictures of people on, what do they have now? They have like goggles with headphones built in. And then I think you can stand on this thing that moves under your feet. So you can feel like you're walking and you're looking and it's moving in sync and hearing, and it's pretty immersive. And you've got virtual reality gloves. So if you happen to see somebody who was in one of those things, and you could tell they're sort of lost in their own world because they're fighting, whatever, and to them, they're in the middle of this big Dungeons and Dragons or whatever kind of thing in their virtual world, fighting, you know, getting really getting into it. And from the outside, they just look like, you know, it's just somebody standing still, or not somebody standing in silence, making all these moves. You know, you can't see what they're seeing. And that seems to me very similar to what it's like. Hang on, somebody's saying something. I find it relieving to think of our life as a virtual game we play. It makes suffering less dramatic. Oh, hang on, I haven't finished yet. So okay, you're coming across the person. They're obviously in this virtual reality thing. Now, if you tapped them on the shoulder, you'd probably give them quite a fright because they're so immersed in their world, you know. And tapping someone on the shoulder is a bit like what we were doing in the meditation of connecting with people, you know. So really the thrust of the gentle snap was about deconstructing or highlighting the gaps in the reality, what it feels like a virtual, what feels like, you know, now this is really real. It's like, no, it's not really real. Like, number one, you can't see your back. Why can't you see your back? I've never wondered about that. Why can't you see your own face? You know, you look in a mirror, that's not the same as the way you see other people's faces, you know. You can't see your own back. You can't see the back of your head. You can see, you know, a bit of your legs, a bit of the back of your legs. That's about it, you know. Why is that? And it's like, oh, well, look at everybody else. Everyone else has a back. It's like, yeah, but who cares about everyone else? What about you? You know, how come you've never seen your back? You know, oh, it's to do with my eyeballs and the way that, you know, it's amazing the way we can keep arguing for, no, this is really real, you know, instead of just kind of going with your own experience. And I've talked a little bit about the other side of things. You can never see the other side of things because you're looking at a screen. You know, it's not real. It just looks like it's real, you know. Okay, so anyway, I went into the virtual snap and this whole thing of like thinking of it as a suit. It's so much simpler because there are, like I posted, I don't know why this kept coming into my mind. I posted a picture recently and I find it a very cute picture, but it's a picture of an old lady feeding a squirrel. Oh, sorry, it's an old lady with a little puppet of an old lady feeding a squirrel, right? And it's, you know, it's a similar like what we do. We make little, it's like why we like stories, why we like movies, because it's like it reminds us of what's really going on. And this new thing of virtual reality, that's just another way of kind of going, yeah, this is what life is really like. It's just a virtual thing. So it's kind of cool and trendy at the moment to go, oh, well, man, we're just living in a simulation. This isn't a simulation. I don't think this is a simulation. I think this is what it is. It is a virtual reality. And what's going on behind that is more real. So it's knowing that. And one of the reasons we don't know that is because if we did know that, people would be killing themselves all over the place because they'd be going, that's not real. This isn't real. You know, we would be missing the point of why we went in there. It's like going to a movie and spending the whole time, anytime anything got a little bit scary, anytime anything got a little bit too, I'm having too many feelings here. You just go, this is not real. It's not real. You know, some part of our brain does that when we watch TV or we watch movies, particularly if it's getting a bit intense. But you remember what you were like when you were a child. I can remember watching the old black and white Boris Karloff Frankenstein movies and being terrified, you know, like just being petrified and having some adult saying to me, it's just a movie, you know. But I didn't think it was just a movie. I thought it was real, or in some way that like Frankenstein was going. Yeah, that's right. I can remember having nightmares that Frankenstein was going to come over the back wall of the garden like he did in the movie. And these are all black and white movies that were made in the 30s. And like I would have been watching them in the 60s, the early 60s. Sorry, not the late 60s. So I think it's important to know that it's not real, meaning that there is a deeper reality. But when you know that, it kind of goes, well, what am I doing here then? Why am I here? Like, where do I come from? Where am I? What's the point? Why have I come into this? And for me, I can't see, like, the only thing that seems to be real in this existence is communication. Communication and love. They're kind of the same thing. And it's funny, like, that's my perspective, because everything else, yeah, money, no, that disappears. Body, no, that's going to disappear. The world, the planets, no, they're all going to disappear. For me, like people going, yeah, but what about the future and history? And it's like, yeah, but my experience is like, I don't remember history. It's just a story. And I don't know about the future either, It's like, well, what does that mean? Then who cares about climate change or anything like that? It's like, yeah, but the climate change and the planet and all that, that's all to do with now, because it's like, it's feedback from the within the this virtual reality of, it's highlighting a lack of love, really. I think it's highlighting there's a communication of love going on that is nature. Okay. And by turning away from that and going, no, I know better than this, there's consequences within the rules of this existence that are highlighting something, because it's to do with turning away from our own nature on the inside as well, and going, no, being hard, being tough, focusing on profit, exploiting each other, convincing yourself that I really need that new iPhone, or I really need that new mobile phone. It's terrible that people are being put in slavery because of it, but I still want it, and all the other things that we convince ourselves about. The feedback is from within, and it's really coming from the deeper reality behind it of like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. So I think it's paradoxical, like most things in the spiritual kind of life, of it's really important to know it's not real, and then it's really important to take it to keep relating to it, to not sort of use it. I think that's what we're talking about with spiritual bypass, is where you kind of go, oh, this is all bullshit, man. It's not real, It's like, no, you're here. You're really here. You're really participating in this virtual thing. So that's not an accident. You wake up every morning. You don't really know why, but you do. You keep waking up every morning. And it looks like you're going to keep doing that until one day you don't wake up. But for now, you're waking up every morning. So the waking up bit is real, meaning you wake up in this virtual world, and that's not by accident. There's some part of you, and it's the part of you that you go to every night in the deep dreamless sleep, when you go back into the mystery, when you take off the goggles, when you pull back from the suit. Whatever you do back there, whatever I do back there, it's very related to what I do when I'm in this thing. I'm not in this by accident. And for me, a lot of it is to do with looking for what's real in here. And as I say, in exactly the same way, it's fair. Isn't it funny the way we're all on Zoom now? Not we're all on Zoom, but there's a lot more connection going on with people from all over the planet. That's very like what it's like in reality, I think, in existence, in this virtual reality that we call existence. I spoke about this before. It's like, you can look at another person and you can think, oh yeah, I know, that's another human being. But if you think of it in terms of virtual reality, you don't know what you're talking to. You're just talking to a suit. Okay, you don't know who's in the suit. Just like, you know, you don't really know what your shape is and what your configuration is. And I've had this like many times where I've looked, you know, I've talked to people and just got a real sense of that they are very, very different from me. And in configuration, not bad or anything. I don't mean like, oh yeah, there's, you know, something really wrong with them, but they're configured very differently. So it's like whoever is on the other side of that suit doesn't look like me, isn't like me. And that's great. You know, we can communicate, you know, and we have all these common things that we, you know, have that we agree on. Like, that's the color blue. And we go, oh yeah, that's blue. And I think that's why language is different as well here. It's like little indicators of how we've all kind of come together at this point, you know, because when you let go of the idea of 7 billion people and you just think about who you've met, I mean, that's really what, like in your own experience, like I've been to big rock concerts and big things where big groups of people, but I didn't meet them all. I just saw them. You know, the number of people that I met and had meaningful interactions with, that's, you know, I don't know, would be in the thousands really in my life so far. And really in the hundreds of like who I've really had, you know, serious conversations with. So I think it's not as big as it looks. I think there's lots of bigness going on, but in terms of communication, it's pretty much smaller scale. So yeah, I'm pretty sure now I'm going to go back and review the gentle snap with that perspective. And I have a feeling that relating to it in that way rather than in existence and out of existence and all that kind of thing, I have a feeling that is going to make it a lot more understandable and accessible. So I'm kind of excited about that, and I'm very pleased to have kind of all these disparate things have come together into this just very, to me anyway, maybe it's not that clear to other people, but to me anyway, it's just a much better way, much better package of explaining it. Okay, anybody got any questions about that or feedback or anything like that about that?
Maybe just something it makes me think of when you talk about our essence outside of reality and coming here. It just brings me to the impression that sometimes I have the impression we come here on this dimension like to express who we are, but in the material world, right? And facing all this resistance, but still learning to express that truth with the resistance, but it's like expressing it in another dimension, like and on Earth, it's like in this material dimension, it's like an opportunity to grow. Yeah, I would say express it in another way with whatever's the atoms and whatever's available on Earth. It's like yeah, I don't know how to say that, but it's sometimes I like to think about it. It just, with your reflections kind of make me think of, you know, what's the goal and why are we here? And I was just, sometimes I think like that it's an opportunity to, yeah, to express. It's like with another lens of, how do you call it? When you're an artist, you know, you can paint or sculpt, or so that this reality here, it's with what's available here and see what will be expressed, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, it's another medium. Yeah.
Medium. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Medium.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, like I talk a lot about refining unconsciousness, and that's that's the deal here. It seems like, but I have a feeling that that goes on. Like you say, you know, it's just another form of expressing that here. It seems like growth in consciousness and going from unconsciousness to consciousness. That's the main kind of thing that goes on here. But I have a feeling that that's because that's the main kind of thing that goes on wherever else there is other than here. So it's kind of, it's just another, as you say, it's just another medium for doing that, you know, I imagine, you know. Very good. Thank you for that. Okay, so I've gone a bit long on that, but I'm kind of excited about it. So, okay, so thanks very much for coming to a Zoom group and for watching the video all the way to the end. And yeah, see you next week for some more Zoom group.